what you want to do with a good hook is connect the heart of the listener with the heart of the message. Welcome to Teach Through the Word, the podcast for Bible teachers. Chris Langham with you again, and here in the studio, or I should say there in the studio, Peyton Jones. How's it going over there?
Hey,
And over in the director's chair, Jonathan Ferguson. How you doing?
Doing good. All systems go.
All right, guys, it is episode 4. Time for something Muppetational, celebrational, inspirational. I don't know where I was going with that, but episode 4, we're going back into the book of Mark today for day 4 out of 5. We are here, as always, to equip you, Bible teachers, to do what you do better, and together with you to elevate the craft of Bible teaching. Your place to get equipped, get trained, and while you're at it, get a little behind-the-scenes look here at Through the Word. So I'm excited about this one, Peyton. How you feeling?
you know, this is the day that I think we're going to geek out on the most, and they've all been good so far. But this is the day where we talk about teaching hacks, kind of like life hacks, and tools. Every craft has a tool. Every skill, every job, there are tools associated with that craft. So I am excited to dig a little bit deeper into those today.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got really excited this morning when I was prepping for this. I was walking around with like a giddy smile on my face, and I had to explain to my wife what I was geeking out over. And I was getting analytical. I like to get analytical about things. I'm an engineer, but I love to pop the hood and see how this works. And it's rare that I get to do that with teaching. Of course, I'm always crafting with it. I'm always working the craft of teaching, but to actually break it down. And so I was actually listening back to some of my own studies and thinking through how I put together and why a particular way of teaching works, and listening back to my Mark studies. It's been a few years since I recorded those. And so I just got excited because I don't get to talk about this stuff all the time. So we get to do that today. So, where should we start?
You don't get to talk about it. You just are doing it, and people are listening all over the world to it. And so it's really cool, like you said, to take it apart. One of the things that I've noticed that you'll do with teachers that you train, because you've trained teachers. I mean, as long as you and I have been doing ministry together, you have been very keen about reproducing yourself as a teacher. It's one of the things you did at Refuge Long Beach. And the first thing that I know you tell teachers to do is grab the attention. All good teachers do that. Jesus did that when he taught, right? He'd be like, hey, there was a man who owned a field, or he'd right away grab your attention. And you call that a hook. Talk to us about what a hook is and how do you craft a good hook? You've got some in Mark, you've got a few places that you really crafted some great hooks. Talk to us about what a hook is and what are some of the hooks you used in Mark and how do you do it?
That's good. I love a good hook. Hook gets the attention, but it does more than just get the attention. Your responsibility with the hook is to, I think of it with a fishing picture. And what you want to do with a good hook is connect the heart of the listener with the heart of the message. It is not enough just to get their attention. It's actually a mistake to do something attention grabbing that leads their attention in the wrong direction. You can say something shocking right off the front, but if it gets them looking in the wrong direction and their mind looking in the wrong direction, they're going to be dazed a bit when you change direction to what your actual message is. So I never create the hook first. I don't just think to myself, ooh, that'll grab their attention, let's use that. I usually create the hook when I am a good ways into my study. I've actually written some of my message, and at some point I realize, okay, this is the heart of the message. And once I know and I have really clarified the heart of the message, then I go back and say, okay, that's the thing I want to get people connected to. So then I figure out, okay, what's the other end of that line that I want to connect? What's something that gets people thinking about it? What you never want to do with a hook is give answers. Jesus rarely preached answers. He preached a lot of great questions. He preached parables that make you think. Jesus was always preaching something that got you wondering, where's he going with this? Or got people shocked. When he led with your sins are forgiven, that shocked the room, and they were like, where's that going? as a teacher with the hook, you want to create tension, not relieve it. So a couple of the hooks I used in Mark, right up front, Mark chapter 1, I led with the question, would you rather go to a church with great teaching or powerful miracles? Which one would you choose? And I recognized, I said, not that it has to be one or the other, but just bear with me for a second. Think through this. I'm asking people to think. Usually I use a question for a hook. Sometimes I'll use a story or situation, but it's always something that gets them thinking. In Mark 5, when we were talking about the demoniac, my question to get people thinking is, when is a person beyond hope? And the hook isn't always, it's not my first sentence. The hook isn't my first sentence. At first, I've got to establish rapport. I've got to establish a quick connection with the audience of who I am, if they're new, or introducing the story, lay down a little bit, but it is very close to the beginning. And so in Mark 5, close to the beginning, I said, when is a person beyond hope? When do you give up? Is it after a year? Is it after 5 years? And I didn't answer that right away. In Mark 11, have you ever tried to follow a story that lost the plot? Now, I didn't come up with that question till later on, till I had been partway through. I'd crafted most of my message at that point, but I came up with that phrase somewhere along the way as I was planning. I came up, lost the plot, and I realized, yeah, that actually really grabs that captures this whole chapter where I'm going with it. And then I stopped there. A hook takes time to develop. One of the things that you got to know is that when you hear a message, if it's a well-delivered message, it feels like it's off the cuff. It feels like, how do you just come up with that? That's hours of work. That is hours of work. I'm well into my study before I actually come up with that. And the time it takes to really develop that hook well, I spend a good hour just like crafting that and making it just right. Because that, if you don't hook well, the rest of your message could be lost. You haven't got their attention in the right place. And so their mind is wandering. But if you grab them well and get them thinking in the right direction, but don't answer it, man, you've got them for a whole message.
That's so true. And if you watch like good films, you'll notice that films they will hook. And one of the ways you mentioned that it's not just about grabbing the attention, like preachers sometimes will do things that are counterproductive to actually teaching the passage. But if you watch like a good movie, sometimes they'll connect with emotions. Jesus did this as well as a teacher, right? He connected with the emotions of the people that he spoke to. He tapped into their desires, like the Beatitudes, when he says, hey, blessed are, and everybody perks up like, whoa, blessedness. I want that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. So there's a difference between, going up stage and being Mr. Personality and trying to get the cheap laugh so
Right.
that it makes you feel good versus, no, this is a strategic place for humor. Like when Jesus talked about the log in your own eye, I believe that he was actually being funny so we would remember that image. It actually impacts you. When he makes you laugh a bit, I'm sure we'll talk about the appropriate use of humor all throughout this. But I want to also, you made another statement in one of the chapters here. Fault finders walk into church like Simon Cowell at a middle school talent show. That is a hilarious thing. Do you sometimes feel a bit bad, like that's too funny, or I don't know if I can get away with this?
So yeah, I actually weighed that one. Laughter is powerful as a teaching tool. And sometimes comedians are sneaky. You think they're just doing comedy, but they're really making a point. I mean, very often Saturday Night Live is making a political point through laughter, although sometimes they're just being dumb or making fun. But it's effective, because what laughter does is, if you are genuine in your comedy and you're being funny and people relate to you, it does two things. One, it helps people put down their guard, their internal walls around their heart. And two, it helps them connect to you as a person and say, I like this guy. I trust this guy. You don't want to overdo it. You're not a comedian for the sake of comedy itself, but there is an effectiveness to getting it just right. And that Simon Cowell one, but that also paints a little picture there. I was trying to paint a picture of what fault finders are in the church, because I spent more time again on on defining a fault finder, because that was the major player in that particular story when they were challenging the disciples for not washing their hands. It was about finding fault. It wasn't just about the disciples being unhygienic or something. It was these guys were looking for anything that was wrong. And so I wanted to dig in, because that's a religious thing to do, and we find it in the church. So I wanted to relate to that.
That's good.
All right, we did talk
Well,
about this stuff for a long time, but we want to get to tools, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So one of the things that I know we got to bring Jonathan in on this part,
Yeah.
but there are tools that will help you prep better. That if you don't have them, you're poor. I know we've all dipped into something, read something someone else said, and then said, "Man, if just like you're talking about the turn of phrase, someone might just have a turn of phrase, or they might have just shed a new light, and you're thinking, man, my teaching would be so much poorer if I didn't have that." So what are some tools that helped you, Kris, to prep for this? And then Jonathan and I will pepper in a few of our own.
All right, so for the book of Mark, my number one go-to tool was this guy right here, Kenneth Wuest, Wuest. Wuest. Peyton, I have you to thank for connecting me with this book, Word Studies in the Greek New Testament. I love Wuest because it's not a commentary. It is word definition. It is translation. It's basically in the mind of the translator translating from Greek into English. And it is just such gold for a Bible teacher, because one of the things that I want to do as I teach, I'm trying to expose the text. I'm trying to bring it out. So it gives me another way to say the same thing the text already did, but that lights up the mind a different way. And it does it for me as I'm studying it. It just opens up. That's what that's saying there in the original language. And so many times it gives me a great word picture that I will take something that Wuest brought out that the words mean, and I'll turn that into a word picture. And it's just a powerful teaching tool. So that's mine.
Jonathan, how about you?
One of the things you'll see as we go through these, I've got a couple of sets in particular of commentaries that I really do enjoy. And one of them is the New American Commentary series. They've got through almost the entire Bible. They're finishing up, I think, the last one or two of them this year. And this one for Mark is by James Brooks, who's actually out of Bethel Theological Seminary in St. Paul. Conservative values with it. I love it. What I like about it is that it goes into some of the Greek. I do use the Wuest as well, but it goes into some of the Greek, but at a much more approachable level, and really diving into finding some of the connections between the different passages. So I like that. I also love anything that R. Kent Hughes has put out, and so his series for Mark is one on Mark is called Jesus, Servant and Savior. I've got a couple of his books right here, actually, but I like his approach because they're much more pastoral. You can see that he's a teaching pastor, so he's not just writing a dry commentary. These are more like reading a sermon.
That's good. I've got a few.
How about you, Peyton?
Yeah, so I've got a few that I like. I would say be aware that there's different types of commentaries. There are technical commentaries, which would be kind of at the level like Jonathan was talking about. When you first get into it, you have to be careful when you're learning to teach it. You don't start teaching that way because you'll bore everybody in the room. And yet when there's something that you need to know about, hey, there's a division over this, or like something that got mistranslated. We had a conversation about that last week. Those are the go-to tools that are going to settle that. But then you have devotional commentaries where someone like Wiersbe, he's not being technical. If you're just learning to teach, he'll do all the things that Kris was talking about. He'll break things down in cool points. He'll give you illustrations. He'll give you application. So you're getting like a well-cooked meal that's more like the final product, because Wiersbe, if anything, was a Bible teacher, and he's got commentaries on the whole Bible. But besides some of the tools mentioned, I would say probably amongst the technical commentaries, I really like the Pillar New Testament commentary, which is kind of halfway between a technical and a devotional, because anything, by the way, you see D.A. Carson's name stamped on, that's going to be a good one. But my all-time favorite commentary for Gospels is something that Baker published called the Hendrickson-Kistemacher New Testament Commentary. It's in 12 volumes. I don't even know if it's in print anymore, but Hendrickson and Kistemacher both did it. William Hendrickson, he wrote, hands down to me, the best commentary on Revelation ever written. But his Mark study is fantastic. He did all 4 Gospels, and they're just amazing. So I'm going to stop geeking out there. But there are so many great tools. And don't forget preachers. Hit preachers. Go to your Alistair Beggs, your Chuck Swindoll's. Get a wide range out there of teachers and find out what they do. Analyze some of the things that Kris raised today and see them using some of those same techniques. And that's all I'll say. Jonathan behaved better than I did on that segment. So that's all we have time for today.
I knew you guys would geek out on that one. Yeah, I actually probably spend a significant portion of my study time listening to other teachers teach the same passages. I've got a selection on of MP3s that I can get through apps, and I'll just listen while I'm driving. Well, that's just my preparation. The same way that I like recording audio for others, the audio works for me because I can do it while I'm doing something else. All right, we are, in fact, out of time. Peyton, thanks so much for that. That will do it for episode 4. Thanks for joining us on Teach Through the Word, the podcast for Bible teachers. Tomorrow, we're going to get into some brass tacks to give you an assignment. So join us for part 5 as we finish out the book of Mark and walk through some of the preparation on a particular teaching and give you an assignment as well. Each week here at Teach Through the Word, we bring you one Bible book or one teaching essential or a guest teacher interview. Looking forward to those as we equip you, Bible teacher, to do what you do better, together with you to elevate the craft of Bible teaching. Peyton, thanks for joining me. Jonathan, great work as always. Thanks for the input, guys. We will see you back here next time.